If nothing else existed in reality and you were just consciousness, you wouldn't feel like an imposter. Why? Because you always were here. There's no separation, so your beingness, you're whole because there's no separation. Like if nothing else existed in reality and you were just consciousness, you wouldn't feel like an imposter. So when we think about it in that way, which can be a bit of an epiphany, by the way, it makes us realize actually it's how I interact with the reality around me. It's how I interact with those people. It's how I interact with those triggers from the inside to the external. When I see someone, it makes me feel this way. When someone says something, it makes me question or doubt myself. So become conscious, become lucid in how you interact with the experience of the imposter syndrome. So ask yourself, how do you know when it's time to feel like an imposter? Which is a weird question in itself. But notice the strategy of it. It's a step-by-step thing. This happens, I feel this way. Someone says this, it causes me XYZ thoughts. Notice those triggers. Notice, is it brought about by certain people? Is it brought about by certain circumstances? In certain areas? Are there certain things that you say to yourself which becomes the story of the imposter? All we're doing is waking up. We're waking up as to how we do what we do, how we think, how we connect, how we associate with the imposter. Now, when we have that interaction with the imposter, that part of us which doesn't feel enough, and I'm going to say part of us. Like I said, it's not who you are. Maybe it's that part of you as an 8-year-old who was told that you're not enough and you're not worthy. It's only a part of you which plays out sometimes. It can be a long time, like throughout your day, but it's still that state of mind and a part of us which comes out to play in a not very nice way. But when you notice it, you have an opportunity to start doing something about it. You've maybe been a passenger to it. You've become like, oh, this is normal. Like when I have this thought, that's reality. That's who I am. When someone says this, of course I was never enough. That's what I got to keep on trying to do things to get external validation. Like we've got to understand it's a strategy, and therefore we have to interrupt that strategy. So ask yourself, how can you interrupt it? Because when it appears and we do nothing, it reaffirms the association unconsciously. It reaffirms the feelings, the sensations, the beliefs, the thoughts, the memories. It just reaffirms. So a couple of things you can do. You can become more stoic. Is this really true? Are there counterexamples? Because if you have a thought of, like, they did that and it must mean I'm this, well, does it really mean it? You may have believed it to be true, but could it mean something else? Ask yourself, what else could this mean? What else can I do? How can I interact with this differently today? Can I change my association with it? Can I focus on that part of me? Because here's the other thing. In the same way that it's not in a fixed state, but it also feels like an identity, we start to have that negativity associated with it, and therefore it becomes self-hatred, right? It becomes, I hate being who I am. Well, when you're having that self-hatred for yourself, you're also hating that part of you who was maybe 8 years old. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about like inner child work, which I have nothing against, and I do aspects of it in different and unique ways. But when you are having that shame, hurt, guilt, fear, anger, that resentment for feeling like an imposter, well, you're actually kind of having the toxic aspect to the part of you who was way back when. And to me, that's not right. So maybe one of the reframes of different perspectives is to actually see the intention behind the behavior. But that part of you way back then hasn't had the ability to evolve to this moment with the knowing of self-worth. So sometimes I think about, who do I have to become to get to where I want to be? But who do I need to be for that past aspect of me? Maybe you need to be the person that you needed back then, which is an interaction and an interruption. So when that happens, that internal critic of saying, who are you to do X, Y, Z, I'm not enough, and fill in the blank. When the imposter syndrome comes in, it is your job to radiate it with love. To radiate that aspect of you, to reconnect with who you are by deciding it doesn't have to be a reality today. But there could be a new story that you can create from this. There could be a new way of being that will allow you to see the contrasting experience of beauty within you and also around you. So begin to notice that within your mind. Notice the interactions that we have. Consider what is happening. It will take some time. It will take a moment. It may take a week. It may take a year, depending how we go on the solution. But ultimately, as you start to interrupt it, you are imagining your brain like a record or a CD, right? Usually it plays the song of the imposter syndrome. It plays the album of not being enough. It might be playing the greatest hits of not being deserving or capable. And it's on repeat. Well, every time it starts to play and you start to stop it and scratch it a little bit, over time, that song, that album, that greatest set of hits of the imposter will no longer be able to play the same tune. You are interrupting the strategy. So make a decision that you're going, hey, when that album comes on, I'm going to start to stop it for a moment, even if it's for a brief second in the beginning. Over time, it'll become a minute. Over time, it'll become a week. Over time, it'll be a month or a year or forever. Because every time you interrupt the strategy over and over and over again, it can't keep playing the same way. If you then start to add other aspects to it, and there's where we can get creative, is we can radiate that part in love, or we can even go, look, it's okay. That little bit of inner critic comes in, that's okay, it's just you. It doesn't have to be my reality. Even if you don't believe it in the beginning, you start to change your frame of reference. You start to interrupt the triggers. You start to interrupt the strategy. And the whole thesis of this episode is saying that, look, it's a state of mind. It's not a constant state of mind. You are not broken. You're not unfixable. Your belief is not your reality. It's your subjective reality, but it's not the objective reality. And the more you start to consider that frame of reference, no longer be the passenger of the imposter, no longer being sedated by that story over and over again, because once you start to assume the responsibility and start digging away at it, keep scratching at that record, considering alternatives, it can no longer come out in that way. So just remember that. Now, of course, we need to be able to maybe do some deeper work, but that is some helpful things we can start to do by just waking up, being conscious, considering alternatives, and recognizing that you can radiate that part of you which runs this with the love that is always needed. Not only be the person that you need to be to get to where you want to be, but be the person that you needed back then in the past. I'm trying to sell to your unconscious mind to recognize that you are beautiful, that you are worthy, you are deserving. You can be abundant. You can live the life that you want. That's the story, which I would say a story of truth, because it's my personal truth, is what I want for you. I want you to be the example of what can be done. I want you to make the ripples far and wide, whether it be big ripples or whether it be for your children, whether it be that you don't pass down those same stories. When the issue was created within us, we could have been very young. And maybe there have been repeats, your parents or whoever your guardians repeated the same story. We need to interrupt that story so we don't pass it down to generations to come. We want to be able to make an impact in our career or our business, or have a deep connection with our partner, knowing we can be vulnerable and safe to know that we're worthy and deserving of love. Now, if that's a bad thing, then hey, I'm at peace with that. But I generally want you to get out of pain. That's my goal. That's my dream. That's why I do what I do for free. And that's what I do for my my main 8-week system so you can get the customized support that you need. So once again, that is josephclough.info/talk. Thank you for watching to the end of this video, and be sure to go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you get notified. And as you'll be able to see on this screen, you can get the full extension of this episode so you can learn more, and also another video I think you really will enjoy. I'll speak to you soon.